Greetings and salutations, comrades. Hope this finds you well. So I came across this pretty interesting tweet by the Madison chapter of the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America. And this tweet in particular, they're calling for the national organization to expel Representative Jamaal Bowman. He's a DSA member from New York, and they're calling for this because he's going against the interest of the working class and of the oppressed people. And they have this letter, where they bring up his voting yes to fund, to give the apartheid state of Israel, in addition, $1 billion for the Iron Dome, talking about how, he was being very positive with his remarks when Colin Powell died recently, the war criminal, both for what he did and what he talked about doing in Vietnam, as well as his role in selling, the Iraq War, the most disastrous foreign policy decision of the 21st century. Which, okay, I agree. That's all fine and well. Like, those are very indefensible positions, like defending war criminal, voting to give the apartheid state of Israel additional $1 billion for their Iron Dome. But where's the same heat for AOC when she's just as egregious, if not more? Is it because she is more popular? She has, more followers, like she has a bigger brand? Like, what's the deal? Like, because again, I'm gonna show some receipts, some of the things that AOC has voted for or not supported or wouldn't comment on her time in office. So I'll show you the tweet from this Madison chapter of the DSA. Again, this is Madison, Wisconsin. Today, we're sharing an open letter from a chapter to DSA's National Political Committee calling for Rep. Jamaal Bowman to be expelled from DSA. You can read the complete letter. The role of a socialist elected official is to be a tribune for the working class and oppressed. I mean, AOC isn't that, right? Where are we at on Force the Vote? Where are we at for the March for Medicare for All rallies? Where are we at for actually holding Biden's feet to the fire for this fucking dumpster fire that is the Build Back, bullshit bill, right? To project our movement's politics and attract wide layers of our class, Representative Bowman's recent actions and statements run completely counter this role and are grounds for expulsion from DSA. Okay, so I'll show you their letter in full. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll show you the main, points that they had. I thought I clicked on it. Let's see. So many. Here we go. Expel Jamaal Bowman, Madison area, DSA. Open letter to DSA's National Political Committee. Uses office and public stature to work against the political positions of the DSA and the principle of socialist internet. AOC has done the exact same fucking thing. Have some moral consistency, right? I agree. Like, his voting on these positions is horrible. It's inexcusable. So is AOC's fucking present vote, right? So is when she said she would defer to party leadership when the U.S. was trying to orchestrate that coup in Venezuela. Same thing when she voted to, make sure Trump wasn't pulling out any funding from NATO, etc., right? I mean, same when she just voted to fund or to sanction Cambodia, right? Because they're friendly with China, because they're developing, better relations with China. Same for when she voted to give, massive amounts of money to the military in 2019. I mean, Jesus Christ, dude, come on. So the Iron Dome, July 28th, voted in favor of $3.3 billion in direct military aid to Israel. And then they bring up Colin Powell, which again, that's all fine and dandy, but let's start showing the receipts here of all the fucked up shit AOC has done and said in her time in office, right? Okay, if you're calling for DSA to expel Jamaal Bowman, you should definitely be calling for them to expel AOC as well. Have some fucking consistency here, people. Jesus fucking Christ. Look, okay, so again, they were talking about how it was problematic that Jamaal Bowman was talking about, Colin Powell's great legacy, even though he was a, despicable war criminal. She's doing the same fucking thing here for goddamn John McCain, right? Look at this. The same fucking bullshit, the same high praise for another war criminal, warmonger who never met a war he did not like, right? John McCain's legacy represents an unparalleled example of human decency and American service. As an intern, I learned a lot about the power of humanity and government through his deep friendship with Senator Kennedy. He met so many. How is that any different than what Bowman said about Colin Powell? It's not. They're both despicable people. You either don't say anything about these disgusting excuses for human beings or talk about how, it's good that they're no longer here, frankly, right? So have some consistency, fucking DSA, right? Here is AOC on Venezuela. What is happening is that this is an issue of an authoritarian regime versus democracy. Imagine thinking Maduro, again, this obscure political figure in Venezuela that the U.S. empire is propping up to further their regime change efforts there, right? Authoritarianism and Guaido democracy. What happened in Venezuela, Samira Khan gets it. She's on point. What happened in Venezuela was an issue of anti-imperialism versus imperialism. So again, this was back 2020.
I think he sees himself losing on the issues. He sees himself losing on the wall, on the southern border, and he needs to grasp at an ad hominem attack. And this is his way of doing it. But what we really need to realize that what is happening is that this is an issue of authoritarian regime versus democracy. And in order for him to try to, dissuade or throw people off the scent of the trail, he has to really make and confuse the public. And I think that that's exactly what he's trying to do.
Wait, was that about Venezuela? Okay, here's the full video. Okay, because that was a little confusing.
What did you make of the president's, I thought, pretty aggressive statement about Venezuela tonight? And he talked about being a socialist country and how we're never going to be a socialist country. It was pretty
we would be so lucky to be a socialist country, right?
Truculent, but it tied the notion of socialism to that particular regime. What do you think about the president, why he did that?
Again, DSA members like AOC or, Bernie's not a member, but they always talk about the Nordic model. That's not socialism, right? That's a capitalist welfare state.
I think that he needs to do it because he feels himself losing on the issues. Every single policy proposal that we have adopted and presented to the American public has been overwhelmingly popular, even some with a majority of Republican voters supporting what we're talking about. When we talk about a 70% marginal tax rate on incomes over $10 million, 60% of Americans approve it. 70% of Americans believe in improved and expanded Medicare for all. A very large amount of Americans believe
she's not fighting for any of that shit anymore.
We need to do something about climate change, and that it is an existential threat to ourselves and to our children. And so I think he sees himself losing on the issues. He sees himself losing on the wall, on the southern border, and he needs to grasp at an ad hominem attack. And this is his way of doing it. But what we really need to realize that what is happening is that this is an issue of authoritarian regime versus democracy. And
there you have it, right? I mean, Jesus Christ. Oh, that one didn't work. All right, so that was one example. Let's share another one. Let's see. AOC follows Pelosi Trump's lead by voting for big bucks for the military. Set one of the highest caps ever on discretionary budget for the Pentagon and related programs. The Democratic Party that now controls the House voted by a vast majority in favor of the bill. Remarkably, so did AOC and Rashida Tlaib. There's AOC and Mama Bear. There you go. That said, AOC could have easily done what her fellow squad members, Ilhan Omar and Presley, did by voting no. She could have very easily added her name to the few Democrats who refused to give to Pelosi's pressure. To her considerable credit, Omar made a statement in which she explained her rejection of the bill. Boom. Okay, so there. Again, have the same heat, have the same fire towards AOC as Jamaal Bowman, right? Have some fucking consistency. They don't. Which one is this? Okay, there's AOC voting yes. Which one was this? Cambodia Democracy Act. So sanctioning Cambodia. This was a little more than a month ago. So she's voting to sanction Cambodia. Again, has nothing to do with promoting rights or democracy. Look, and they all went along with it almost without fail. It's because Cambodia and China are developing a more close, working relationship, which makes sense because they're pretty fucking close to each other, right? China exports the Belt and Road Initiative. China exports, cooperation and partnerships, while the U.S. exports sanctions and imperialism. So this is AOC supporting U.S. imperialism. Okay, where's the same fucking heat for that? Okay, another example. As you can see, there's a lot. There's a lot. Okay, that was the Cambodia Democracy Act. Yep. AOC says she'll follow Democratic leadership on the issue of U.S. intervention in Venezuela. So supporting U.S. imperialism against Venezuela. And again, we had that clip of her talking, right? I defer to caucus leadership on how we navigate this. So again, she's in total support of U.S. imperialism. That's going against internationalism, DSA Madison, right? You're not a true fucking socialist if you're not an anti-imperialist. AOC ain't no fucking anti-imperialist, right? Jesus Christ, dude. Okay, there's another receipt. I think I have at least one more. So again, you could even find more than these. These are just the ones I came up with off the top of my head, right? Okay. NATO Support Act, HR 676. This bill prohibits appropriation and use of funds to withdraw the U.S. from the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Again, U.S. imperialism. How did she vote on the HR 676? Again, funding NATO, U.S. empire, U.S. imperialism. Okay. I mean, this shit ain't that fucking hard to figure out, people. If you're going to have calling to expel people from DSA for going against internationalism, for going against the interests of the oppressed, of the marginalized, have some fucking consistency, you fucking absolute hacks. Here we go. Okay. Roll call 46, HR 676, on motion to suspend rules and pass NATO Support Act. Okay, this was January 2019. Let's go down to AOC. How did she vote on this? Probably not going to surprise you, but she voted to support this, as did almost all of these people, right? God damn, there's a lot of people. LMNOP, LMNOP. God damn, son. Okay, AOC voted yes. So she didn't want, even if, I don't know if Trump was going to go through with that, obviously, but she didn't want Trump to take away funds from NATO, which again would have been inherently a good thing. NATO is a tool of U.S. imperialism. NATO is a tool of the U.S. empire. It's a tool used to ratchet up tensions against, Russia. Okay. I have, that's a pretty long list of receipts there showing why, if the DOC is going to get the DSA, not the DOC, is going to be calling for, expelling Jamaal Bowman, for going against, the working class of the oppressed, for not being an internationalist. Have that same fucking heat, have that same fucking fire for expelling AOC. Her record, her time in office has been just as abominable as Jamaal Bowman's, if not worse. But of course, they're not going to do that because she, has all this, prestige and don't want to bite the hand that feeds you or some type of bullshit like that. I don't know how these people would explain it, but let me know. Is that hypocritical what the DSA is doing? I think it is. Like the video if you like the damn video. Subscribe for more content. All part of the people. Quick shout out to the 2 Uber comrades supporting my channel, Patreon, my partner, and Independent Left News. Definitely check out Independent Left News. Peace.